Did you know that, there's a lot of different research and there's a lot of different numbers thrown out there, but somewhere between 6,000 and possibly up to 60,000 thoughts are the average number of thoughts that a person has per day. The recent research is suggesting more along the lines of 6,000. But more important than the number of thoughts is that 80 to 90% of those thoughts, 80% of those thoughts are considered to be negative and 80 to 90% repetitive, which means that our brains, in trying to be efficient, end up with a lot of repetitive thoughts. But the thing is, a lot of these repetitive thoughts, the vast majority of them, by the numbers, the percentages, are negative. And those negative repetitive thoughts, in other words, our brains just go right off down. I call it autopilot. The repetitive is autopilot. It just reacts and it focuses on what you thought in a similar situation, and it just goes off down that same pathway. And this creates a lot of repetitive cycles of things that aren't getting resolved for us. Negative things. It can start, it's in every aspect of our lives. And it is one of the biggest things that's keeping us in the loop of limiting beliefs, but also relationships where we're not growing, and attitudes and ideas, because we can't find a solution when we're in the repetitive thought, and it shuts down our reticular activating system, RAS, our prefrontal cortex. And when we are in that negative aspect, it also increases our stress and anxiety, increases the cortisol that's produced, decreases the positive chemicals that are produced, like oxytocin and serotonin, and so dopamine. And so this is really important to understand, in order to create the extraordinary life that we can choose to have. And so when we're talking about these repetitive negative thoughts, they are around everything. And I use a framework called reverse, reframe, and rebuild to help us start to recognize them and learn how to change them to rebuild our thoughts, our belief system, because our belief system is such an important part of creating the life we want to live. And we can choose to change our beliefs, but we have to recognize it. And those autopilot thoughts are so insidious, so consistently there, and they just happen and we don't recognize it. And they're holding us back from being able to change our beliefs and our thoughts and create the life that we want to live. And so, of course, one of the things is appreciation, because when we appreciate ourselves, and we appreciate what's coming to us, it starts to help us see the negative, repetitive thoughts like nothing good ever happens to me, or, you're having a conversation with somebody, maybe a challenging coworker, and you think, well, he always, or partner, right? He always says this, or she always does that. And you go off down that negative loop. And when we do that, there's no ability to figure out how to have a better conversation, look for the good in the other person, and focus on ways to be able to interact and communicate with them in a way that begins to change how the conversations go. And the same thing goes for us when we are thinking negative thoughts about anything going on around us, challenges at work, challenges at home, financial challenges. When we're focused on the negative parts of it, like, the economy, the way the economy is, I can't find a job, there's no jobs in my field, all these sorts of things that we're telling ourselves, they keep us in the loop of the problem. And we have to change these thoughts, recognize them, reverse, reframe them, and rebuild in order to be in a solution mode, to look for how to get out of the situation or how to make it better. And so those negative autopilot thoughts are killing us in terms of actually taking control and owning our lives. And so we're choosing them, but we don't realize we're choosing them. It's subconscious. It's happening without us recognizing it. And so there's all kinds of games that we can learn to play with our brain, right? To retrain our brain, to keep our brain in the game. That's what I like to call it, because an autopilot negative thought, our brain's not in the game. It's on autopilot. It's not engaging. And so if that's happening 80% of the time, if we could reduce that to 40 to 60% even, we would change our lives. So the more that we start to recognize it, and sometimes, I recognize that my brain's in that loop, but it takes multiple reframes, as I call them, to find one that actually gets me out of that loop. And so when we start to recognize it, then it's developing the tools, because you can create a lot of different tools in your toolbox to get you back in the game and to get you to out of that autopilot negative thought. And oftentimes it takes more than one to find the right one. And you might find the right one that works for you right now, and tomorrow you find yourself in that same negative thought way, especially if there's a particular thing that's nagging at you. And it can be in any subject, whether that's financial or personal or relationships, work relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, so many different areas that this can be going on, and it keeps coming back. And sometimes the thing that got you out of it the day before or an hour before doesn't work, and you have to find a different tool. And that's why it's important to develop these different tools. And so, you want a toolbox of things that you can do to help yourself feel better. And that's really what it's about, because when we're feeling really bad, that means we're in a problem, whatever that problem is. And we can't find a solution when we're in that space. So we have to do things, and you can do physical things. You can go out for a walk, you can dance, but you want to distract yourself. So for instance, I went to go for a walk today, knowing that there was something nagging at me that thought wise, and I got 2 minutes into the walk and realized I needed to go and I needed to listen to. So I happened to be listening to, a really good inspirational book that I already had on my phone. So I went and got my earbuds and said, I need to listen to that while I walk, because I need to break this negative loop. And so you can do sometimes music, you can have you can have several playlists that get you back in a better space, start you feeling better, get you inspired, excited, or at least more optimistic, right? Depending on where you are to start with. And realize that it's not our goal in life, or it's not maybe realistic to be dancing in joy every moment of the day all the time, right? There's some significant challenges we can be going through. But if we set our goal to feel as good as we can, to recognize that we have control to get in a better feeling place, get in the best feeling place that you can be in that moment. And if that is our mentality, if we begin to work towards that, if we create what I call toolboxes, but it's different things. It's playlists, it's activities that make us feel better. It's being aware of what you can do that gets you back in that service, going and volunteering in different places, knowing your go-to places to go to volunteer, or having a set schedule to do something that always lifts you up and reminds you how blessed you are and how lucky you are, and the opportunity that you have to give back and give other people the opportunity to regain their footing, to get back to a place, or maybe get someplace for the first time that they've never been, right? It's a joy and a gift to get to do that. And it reminds you that there really are so many good things. And that can help us regain resilience as well, because that negative autopilot thought process erodes our self-confidence, erodes our ambition, erodes our motivation and our resilience. Because so we do it to ourselves by allowing those negative thoughts and allowing other people to say it to us, and then take it in and absorb it. And there's no one, no matter how close you are, no matter how much you love somebody, there's no one that knows you, really knows your heart and soul, except you and your higher powers, you and your source energy, whatever that is for you. And so it's really, really important that you can love somebody dearly and accept that maybe they don't see the good in you at that moment in time, or they think something, and you have to line up with who you are. We can never get to our extraordinary life from the place of needing even one person to accept us 100%. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean if you go through life and, you have no friends, that you don't need to maybe look in the mirror and figure something out. That's not what I'm saying. But if you have specific people that you think you need their approval, your spouse or your parents or your children, or, a guru or a mentor, whoever, if you think that there's someone that needs to completely approve of what you're doing for it to be valid, then that's outside in living, and it's giving our power away. And you got to find a way to trust your own insight and your own instincts, ethics, beliefs, because what you are called to do and what really lights you up inside is right for you. And it's already ordained by the higher self, by God, source energy, whatever that is, because that's why you feel that way. And so no other person can, there are people that will understand it, but not everybody will. And maybe somebody that matters to you won't. And if you go through and your whole thing is, I have to get them to believe this, I have to get them, and you can't get them to believe it. So you're not living your life and you're allowing it to really take you down, a really, and so many of us do that in one way or another because we are taught to live life that way. We are taught to live life from the outside in rather than the inside out.